Good morning, all. My name is Mark Peacock. I'm the Chief Marketing and Communication Officer here at Lynxspring. Delighted you could join us on today's webinar all about Reflow 2. We are really excited about Reflow 2. Fortunately enough, we've had some opportunities to take some look underneath the hood already. And as I keep saying, it is indeed exciting new addition for Reflow. Yes, we are recording this, and it will be available at a later date on Lynxspring's marketing YouTube channel. Should you have any questions, feel free to ask them by clicking on the question mark and provide your questions as needed. So, Reflow 2, yes, it's the next generation of Reflow. Lynxspring and Reflow have been together now, which I looked up. I had to be reminded of it this morning in getting prepared for this, since 2022, if you can believe it. And since that time, we have worked extremely close together. And with Reflow 2, lots of new things in which our two presenters are going to talk about today. Matt Hoyt, who is the Director of Sales at NiagaraMods, and John Bray, who is the Client Experience Manager, will be presenting. We're going to take a look at some new things, the extensible plugin architecture, the new, faster setup that they've got built in here, advanced UI and theming, features and functions, powerful new authoring and development tools. And they've also built in being able to make it much easier to build for scale. So without further ado, Matt and John, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Here to talk about Reflow 2. As Mark mentioned, I am John Bray. I've been here for a few years now. Before this, I was a system integrator working out in the field. Now I am in charge of onboarding, technical sales, and support. I've got Matt here with me.
Yeah, hi everyone, Matt Hoyt. I'm the Director of Sales here at NiagaraMods. I've been here since roughly February. Really excited to be here, really excited to showcase, as Mark said, Reflow 2 with one of our closest partners in Lynxspring. We have been so pleasantly lucky to be able to have a partner such as Lynxspring to not only be a distributor of ours to help spread kind of knowledge of Reflow and kind of be tight in terms of sales, but they're also one of the partners that we really go to in order to deliver Reflow projects and to really be kind of a cornerstone in understanding where the technology meets all of you, where you are today, and how we can all win together. So really glad to be here. Just really quick 20 seconds of agenda. What we're going to go over today is quite literally what Mark said, is that we're going to showcase kind of a brief, what is Reflow, what is Reflow 2, and then we're going to get into the tool set. We're going to show you kind of what a day in the life of a Reflow artist would look like. And then during this entire presentation, John and I, as you can tell from us being in the same room on one camera, are very informal. So please feel free to interrupt us with the Q&A, ask any questions. We're happy to answer. We obviously have the entire hour. One thing I will note is that we are all very fortunate to be able to show an alpha version. So this is pre-beta. Beta will be released this month. So if there are any hiccups, like any good software development, that is why. But just know that we're showing you something that is extremely new, that we're extremely proud of. And I think that as you see us walk through the presentation today, that you'll see how it makes sense for everyone here. But once again, thank you for the time. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. I'll go ahead and kick us off. I'm going to start with this brief presentation. I promise not to read every slide because I really want to get to the actual product itself. But before we get started, I want to talk about what's really changed. There's a lot of big words here. There's a lot that's
I can't read it.
There's a lot that's different. I'm going to start at the top. It's backwards compatible. So the main thing here is that there's no deterrent from upgrading from Reflow 1 to Reflow 2. We want to make that simple. Those existing licenses will persist through Reflow 2. They live as separate modules, so you'll be able to run both simultaneously. I'll talk about sort of how that actually works in the system a little bit later. We are changing the way that you actually store data. So now that is succinct with a project. We took Reflow 2 and took a step back from the idea that once you install the service, you sort of have an implementation of Reflow. Now you have a separation between the application and the project system itself, and you can have multiple of those that synchronize simultaneously. We have really opened the door on bindings and page templates. I can't even summarize that into a paragraph, so I'd rather show you guys, as well as the block editor and canvas editor. We are enhancing the way we bring in equipment and have tag support there, brick and haystack ready to go. And then last two things I'll talk about is internationalization, which is that I-18 in support. And then lastly, themes and plugins.
Yes, as you can tell before John moves on, the takeaway here is we have taken feedback from the field for the past, I think, 3 years since 2022, Mark, when we started working together. But we took that feedback to heart. So we understand that people love Reflow today for what it is, but we understand there's more that we can do to save time, to make work easier, more seamless. And that's what we endeavor to do within Reflow 2.
Awesome. So I'm going to switch screens here ever so briefly. This is my browser now. I am logged in via Chrome to my Niagara station. This is the new configuration view. Feels a little bit unfamiliar just because, as you see, we've got dark mode readily available. I've got that available across the board. I can switch down here in the bottom left corner. We know that's been highly requested and a lot of people love that. I'll get right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a project here. We're going to call this our Lynxspring demo. And that project has now been created. It lives as a draft. So we have a draft publish preview workflow now, meaning that I can sort of create this first project and have it as my true implementation. And then I can duplicate off of that and maybe experiment with something off on the side.
For those of us who aren't familiar with Reflow 1 or Reflow just kind of in general, what we've used before as a project was Reflow. Reflow used to be just a single project, a single view that we could do a configuration on, maybe change some ways that users could view things, but really it was one base config is what we built. We decided from feedback that there's more ways people want to build. So John might want to build one way for a customer. I, supporting the same customer, might want to build or need to build a different way. And this is what we're supporting.
Awesome. So over on the left, there are some navigational items. These look a little bit different from what you're used to seeing in Reflow 1. I'll sort of show you where all of that content is at. But before we go any deeper, I want to dive into some of the high-level stuff. So the first thing being the fully web-based file manager. You now have access to the Niagara Station's file system straight from the web. What's really cool about that is I don't have to jump back and forth between screens or make sure my Niagara Workbench version is proper. I can simply go in and browse and add and delete and download, rename. I can modify the entire file system here straight from the web. This almost feels like a Dropbox or OneDrive, readily available at my fingertips right inside of Reflow. From here, I can actually add files from my system or even create new folders. Again, this will automatically synchronize with my station. I'll show that off once we get into the project. A couple things change about how we are implementing users and roles here. We're actually pulling that data straight from Niagara. So we've always said that we support the Niagara security model. We're going to continue to do that. We think it's robust already. And you have a little bit of access to control what the user sees and what they automatically log into as the default project. So you can see here, I've got sort of control over that from the user and the role perspective.
We took this opportunity also to kind of absorb user and roles into Reflow because we're going to start, and we'll show this here in a second with plugins, but we're going to start extending outside of just Niagara to other third-party applications. And in order for us to control a secure environment, we have to be able to put that across those plugins and third-party applications. So you'll start seeing more granular security measures, very similar to what we have in Reflow 1, going across the board and to plugins within Reflow 2.
Awesome. Matt hinted at it, but I'm going to save it for the end here in my demonstration and go over languages really quickly. This is a really cool implementation of how we're able to download information straight from your client's web browser into the machine, into the station itself, without having the actual station have internet access. So here I have some additional language extensions that I can add, again, straight from the web browser. I'm just going to add Spanish, and I'll show you inside the project how I'm going to utilize that. So let's dive in. So upon first glance, this is starting to look a little bit more familiar if you've seen the configuration space for Reflow 1. I've got navigation items over on the left. I've got a preview in the middle. I've got a new properties pane off on the right. So this is actually where we're going to do a lot of our work today and control a lot of the data that we're seeing inside of the preview. Things that didn't change. I still can go through at the bottom here and preview different size modes. Reflow has been responsive. That's a key core concept of Reflow 1. We're going to continue to implement that throughout Reflow 2. We've made that a little bit more robust here, where you can actually go in and finitely tune exactly what your resolution is going to be. You'll see that sort of highlighted there on the right. At the rest of the bottom here, I've got other tooltips. This is our new toolbar. There are lots of things I can do here, like panning around and going into browse mode, even toggling the light and dark mode across the entire application. Really cool stuff here. I'll get to more of those features in just a second. We do plan on having a wizard here. This is not implemented in this alpha build, but that is still going to be available because there are lots of things you can change right away in Reflow 2. Being the first one, I usually go in here to design and layout and swap the logo and hero. So I'll come in just like any other Reflow 1 application. I have this image that's added by default. I can click in this box, and now I have sort of all files where I can dive through and see different content. Again, what's cool about this is I can add a file from my local file system. So I've got a Finder window here where I can pull up my desktop and content, and you can see I've got some images already ready to go. I have some logos here that I'm going to try to add to our file system. So we'll pull those through, and very quickly I've added those into our system. So 3 different logos there. So really cool to be able to do that quickly. I can hit OK now. That's chosen, and you can see that's been updated.
Yeah, I really don't want to skip over how important that is to me. So what you notice John do is a simple drag and drop of files into the file manager directly for this project. This is one of the requests that we actually didn't get, that we kind of figured out, hey, we can implement a way to treat our application similar to how we're used to working within a computer, within an operating system. People are used to copying and pasting. We're used to dragging and dropping. Ultimately, what we wanted to do was meet our users where they're at. We know that our users are competent using Windows and Mac. So how do we actually bring those similar features to our product to, once again, save time and make you more efficient?
Absolutely. So you can see now that I've added that logo, it's going to live as a project inside my file system. And then I have some finite controls over how exactly that looks. In Reflow 1, you sort of had access to how tall the logo is, and that really affected the rest of the navigation. Now you can really skew it if you'd like. You can rotate it around on its axis. Lots of different control features there if you want them. Similar thing is going to happen when I dive into the hero. So you can see we have this default, and I can have multiple hero styles, which I can add, and I'll go through that later. You've got your title and subtitle controls, and then you have this background image. So similarly, I have this sort of drop down here. I'll pull through an image. I think I have a nice looking hero here already ready to go. That looks pretty good, and I've added that as an image. Everything is sort of as a pop-up now. I want to highlight that because it's really changing the way that you're actually interacting with the navigation items in the system. You're not leaving. I still know exactly where I am in the navigation. I just have a quick pop-up window that's going to allow me to control finitely this image. They have some really cool blend effects added with filter effects if you want them. Again, really feeling more like a creative tool, like an Adobe product or a Figma. And if you want that control, you have it. You don't have to use it if you don't want it, but I think sometimes it can be a really cool implementation and really give your site some flair here.
Yeah, as we evolved our product from Reflow 1, the first idea of Reflow was, how do I help my system integrators be extremely good at design and polish of what they deliver with the UI without needing you to be web designers and web developers? That was kind of step one, and we think that we did that extremely well. In Reflow 2, we kind of took it in both ends of the spectrum to an extreme. So we're giving tools that are going to let you do as many creative things as you want, change the border values, change the padding, change radiuses, like things that you traditionally see within web design. But we've also heard that, hey, Matt, you know, I don't really care about being a designer. Can you give me the ability to simply copy and paste the full design? We're going to show that here in a little bit. But we've also heard that simplistic view of, hey, I just want to deliver something that looks modern and polished. We're accomplishing that too.
Awesome. So I'm going to close this window here. And what we've implemented with any place that you can add an image is actually a layer system. So again, think of that Adobe product where you can have an image, but you can also have another image on top of it, or maybe some text, and that all sort of layers in a system to give you the final product. We can do the same thing here. So I'm going to add an interaction. There's my new layer. It says none right now. I can go base color if I want to just turn everything straight blue. I've also got this gradient option where I can sort of fade that blue from the bottom, and I have really cool control over where that starts and stops. You can see that here at the bottom. So I sort of like that. I'm going to make this just a little bit darker maybe. I will pull that down, and I think that gives us a nice little flair to the site. So again, lots of fine tuning there just on the creative feel of the background. So I'll move into the actual configuration space here. You can see I've got some cards set up, and when I'm not clicked on anything, I get my page properties off on the right. So you can see my title, my subtitle, hero styles over there on the bottom. I've got those options. When I actually click on a block or a dashboard card in Reflow 1, I now get that block property. So I can see the title, I can see the acknowledged date and the settings for that alarm card. I can do the same thing with the weather station. Anytime I want to add a card, I can still come to the bottom in our toolbar here, and this is a new function where I've got this search bar to search through all of the blocks that we've got available. I've got some that you'll see that are sort of familiar and some that are brand new. This list ultimately will have parity with Reflow 1 first and foremost. Again, we've added some new ones already that you can see, but we want to make sure that anything that you build in Reflow 1 can be transferred over to Reflow 2 seamlessly. So that's step one. I'm just going to drop in a circle card here, and you see it kind of went out of place. I'm able to drag and drop that appropriately to get it to resize where I want. So we sort of stepped away a little bit from the masonry layout, is what we call that in Reflow 1, where the blocks automatically are filling left to right. Now they come in as a default size, and you have full control over how that looks inside of the system.
The cool thing that we've also implemented is we did not go outside the boundaries of also suggesting how something should look. So as John actually manipulates these cards, you'll also see that we snap to a grid still to make sure that we're not taking anything weird. We don't have to mess with pixel alignment, stuff of that nature. So there's still a little bit of guidance, but we wanted to make sure that you had the freedom to actually create what you want.
Great point. So I'm going to continue customizing this circle card. Over on the right, I'll give it a value. And this is a text box where I can manually type in 50 here, and it's going to give me that value. But I have this new icon that we've implemented across Reflow 2 called bindings. I get this pop-up. It says, okay, add a binding. It says that 50 is now my fallback. I'll go ahead and add a binding. This is going to allow me to search my system, and you're looking at the first view of what we're calling the station browser. This has lots of information. So things that I'm familiar with would be the station that I'm in, like Reflow 2 demo. It's got services and drivers, and there's all of my equipment. There are some new items like these are my buildings. These are hierarchies that we're actually adding for you as a data source. And you're going to hear that a lot from us in the coming year.
Yeah, the one thing to note here is what you're noticing is traditionally when we bind something in Reflow or just Niagara in general, like we're binding points, we're binding the information that's within Niagara. If you look, John's actually going to the weather station, which is actually a separate API from Niagara that we're pulling in. This gives us the ability to bind other pieces of data to then make it usable in the platform. And you'll see how we're going to do some creative things with this binding here in a second in order to make it extremely useful. And in a little bit, we'll talk through those plugins to really give the kind of vision of what we want to bring to the market.
Awesome. So as we talk through it, I'm just going to grab something simple like a space temp from our VAV1 there. I'll hit OK, and it's going to generate that value for me. You can see that space temp has been pulled in. It's now overriding that fallback, and it's blue highlighted to give the user context that that's the value that's showing up. What's interesting here is I can actually add another one. And you may ask, what would I really even do with that? Well, I'll show you. So I'll dive through here to VAV2. We'll go to space temp, and I'll pull that value in. So now I've got both pulled into the same block, but again, I'm only really using the first one right now. Well, that's because we have this function set to first. So this is something new that we've implemented for Reflow 2 specifically to make it easier to get what you want as a value. So instead of just first or last or random, we have this math section that allows you to choose from these values here, and I'm going to choose average. So now I'm actually taking both values, spitting out an average value and displaying that on the screen without any use of workbench knowledge or having to go through Wiresheet and create that value as a numeric and then wait for it to populate and then pull that through and have to repeat that process over and over for each page. I can quickly do that inside of the Reflow system with simple bindings.
Now, to answer the question that we get before anyone asks is no, we're not trying to become a controls tool. So what we're not trying to do is replace Niagara. We're not trying to become that holder of that knowledge. But we do figure that there are some very simple things that we can make significantly easier in our platform than going to the station all the time and trying to do work there. This is one of those examples where we just took, traditionally would take a significant amount of time. In about 20 seconds, we did the same thing. So really big on saving time and making things easy.
Absolutely. One more thing I want to show off about this box, I think it's really cool. I'm going to pull this over just a little bit. Notice I'm still in my normal reflow configuration view. I've got my services over here. Of course, if I go to a different view, I can sort of hide this from the user, and I'll show that off later on. But ultimately, I want you to see that I can still come in here, navigate around as if I would normally as a Niagara user. And I notice that I've got a third space temp here. I can drag that right in, and we recognize that as a value. So again, really dynamic system here. Now I'm averaging all three. Pretty cool. Okay, so I'll jump back out. Anytime I have this binding window or pop-up available, I can use keyboard shortcuts to copy that value. So I'm going to hit Command C. I'm on Mac. My binding has been copied to clipboard. Now I can use that elsewhere. I'll leave my limits as is. I do want to set a title here. We'll go space temp. I have some options on text and bottom text and even icon. This icon browser is the same as before. I have this search where I can pull up temp. I'll drop that in. And then I have some style options below that. So generally, I like to go to the gauge mode, and then I like to make the stroke a little bit bigger. I can manually type in here for a larger number than 4. These are representing pixels, but you don't necessarily need to know that, and we don't expect everyone to know that. What I can do is actually hover over this W and just drag to the right until it looks good to my eye. Same thing with the track width. Awesome. So from here, you can see I have control over the actual colors of the data, right? So I want this gauge to actually modulate based on what temperature. So I can click on primary, and now I've got this library full of colors. This is actually represented over here in our library. So I can go to design and colors, and you can see all of our colors listed here. Well, again, a little bit more robust than what you're used to seeing in Reflow 1. You still have primary and secondary, and we're never going to stray away from that. But you also have some content severity colors. You have point and device status, where you're used to seeing that purple overridden or red for alarm. You have those available. You can set this up custom and even import your own library here to customize. So that's where that color palette is really coming from. So as I go through here, you see those same colors and even surfaces, which are all of these background darks and lights that we're using. And I'll show you why there's 2 colors there in a little bit. But I'll switch back to custom. And now I'm going to go to, again, binding. So this is a dynamic color now. I want to choose our value. Remember, I'm pasting in there. There's our values. Averages are the same thing. And then I have some style options. So I'll move this off to the side. You've got your fallback, which is blue. You have min max, and then you can set an in range and then a low and then a high. Well, we've already offered that in Reflow 1, and we felt like we could do a little bit better than that. We've got lots of design-minded guys on our team. So I'm going to switch that over to spectrum. And now I've got a full sort of rainbow of options here with different stops or percentages of where those colors are going to start changing. This little blue arrow at the bottom is showing me exactly where I'm at in that spectrum. Generally, it's probably not ever going to hit really 0, so I'd probably boost this up to maybe 60 to sort of move that arrow a little bit, and that looks a little bit more accurate for what the actual color is. That's great. Maybe I go into this one and maybe swap it to 80, so we get that to see that move around a little bit more. So as that modulates, you'll see this start to change color. I really like these settings. I think, again, our defaults are pretty good. I'm going to copy this color now, and you can see that color has been copied to my clipboard. I'm actually going to go paste that into the thermometer color. I'll pull that open, and we'll paste that right in. And now you can see it's following the same status. So again, really cool from a usability standpoint. That's awesome. I'm going to add another card. I'll go in, and maybe this time I'll keep it simple. I'll just drop in a point, and we'll call it the same thing. This is just going to be another space temp. I'll give it another value. We'll just choose 1 here. I'll use my history, so it'll be quick and easy. We'll go to VAV1. There's our space temp. Again, keeping it very simple. Maybe I want to call this something different. Maybe I want to call this full zone temperature. I'll show you why I'm doing that in just a little bit. We'll give it a nice little icon. We'll go temp one more time. And I have that available. What's cool about this is I can change the background color. So this time I'm using the default dashboard card color, but I want to go to custom. I'm actually going to make this a cool blue for us. And then I'm going to have to change the icon color. So I'll go back in and make this one white. I'll go custom and sort of swap that around there. Cool. One last thing, I would probably do the text here as well. So that's our value right here, or not the value, sorry, the title. I'll go in, and right now that's set to secondary text. I would make that custom as well, and we'll just drag it white. So that card looks pretty cool. I'm going to click off of it, click back on. I'm going to copy paste, again, just using keyboard shortcuts. Now I can sort of modify the size of what that block looks like. Copying, pasting across. I want maybe a quarter size card. Copy, paste again. And you can see how I'm pretty easily filling out that space. It still looks really good. It's quick and easy to do inside of Reflow. And now I can build out my entire dashboard page pretty quick. I'm going to add another block here. This time we're going to do something a little different. We're going to go into the map view. So this one I'm going to make a little bit bigger here for us. We'll go all the way across. And we're going to go down just a little bit further. So this automatically defaults to Columbus. This is where we're at, actually a little north of this in Delaware. But what's cool about this is we've opened up some style options. So you see OpenStreetMap as a data source. We now have multiple of those available. In Reflow 1, we just had the map box, which we still have. We've customized this to fit our dark theme a little bit better, which I think is pretty cool, quality of life feature. But I'm going to go with that dark mode for our dark theme. I can set the zoom level here. We'll go 20. And previously, this wasn't really available until I added some buildings. So again, quality of life feature there. We wanted to make this available no matter what. I can now add a map marker. I'm just going to click somewhere in Columbus there and hit OK. This map marker is default. It's going to be customized to the location. You will still have the option to customize the marker and the information that shows up when hovering or clicked on it. We have lots of different actions that can come from that. On top of this, I can actually now add a layer. So this map itself is coming from Mapbox, right? But my layer can be a weather radar coming from a different data source. And you can see those clouds moving across. We had some pretty significant snow this morning, but you can see how now I'm layering different data sources on top of a single dashboard block. Pretty powerful. All right, I'm going to go in and add maybe one more card here or a couple more blocks. One thing that we want to emphasize is that every single page that existed in Reflow 1 has now been compartmentalized, and you can use them everywhere. So let's say that I want my full records table of alarms here. I have my shelf, which gets added there below, and then I can add maybe a records table below that. And very quickly, I built what looks like a standard alarm page in Reflow 1, just added to my main dashboard here, something that wasn't available in Reflow 1. This is going to work the same way across the board. So every single page will have this option. You'll have options to customize how this looks and feels. You'll be able to set this as a page template or default, and then use it elsewhere when you move on to a new project. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to do one more thing here. We're going to copy paste just to fill out this space. I like when everything looks full there. And I am going to switch from English to Spanish. So you can see some things changed, some things didn't, like my alarm title block changed, but something that I put in manually like this space temperature didn't. I can click on this box here, and you can see as I'm clicked, I've got this translation missing here. So I can hit that little purple button there, and it's going to allow me to translate that automatically. It is going to go off screen for the Spanish translation there for me, but ultimately I'm able to reach out and grab that translation. This is a very first look at a more conservative version of how we're using AI or LLM. So I can do this sort of across the board. Anywhere that I have a title or a value, I can click on that button and sort of go through and translate.
Yeah, the really neat thing that this provides is not only the ability for me to translate to another language, but to do so both sides and to recognize a user's browser settings to then give them the experience that they want. So you can see John obviously created the site within English, translated to Spanish. If a Spanish user comes into the platform and their browser is set to Spanish, that's what they'll see out the gate. So it's a really powerful tool, not only for a user experience, but now we can also deliver multilingual options to a larger client base now, hopefully, to help our system integrators get more business.
Yeah, so I've gone through and changed a couple of the titles and subtitles here. And again, I can switch up at the top. You'll see it'll still keep my English translation, and it will remember what I've already translated for Spanish. Again, light and dark mode inside of the actual system here. and inside of the application itself. So for whatever you prefer or what you want to deliver, you have that option. And then again, web browser recognizes what you have set to your default. So even if you're building the site out in dark mode, but your customer really wants to see it in light mode, they will have that option readily available for them. So I'm going to switch back to dark here, and I'm going to switch the project to light because I want to make one change. So notice this map has not updated. It's still using this dark mode because that's what's set as default. On a lot of different options inside of Reflow 2, you have this little sort of night and dark shift icon. So now I've separated the two, meaning that I can set something completely separate for our light and dark based on the actual configuration. So that's really cool. There's my dark mode, and there's my light mode. Really awesome use case there. All right, so I'm going to switch back to English because I am not that fluent in Spanish. I try. I'm going to do one more thing here. So everything that you built out under a building in Reflow 1 was seen as a floor, and you sort of had those floor plans, and that's really the only place that you could dynamically make changes that way. Now you have canvases where you can build almost anything, including your own custom block. So I'm going to go to canvases here, and we're going to create a new canvas. This exists as canvas 1. Again, it looks very similar to how you would create floor plans in Reflow 1. I choose a background here. So I'm going to browse through all of my files and maybe pull through my images. And I have some floor plans in here, but again, I'm going to pull through one that has been resized a little bit better for us. I'm going to drop that in, and I'll use that one. So it's going to give me my size properties already out of the box, and done and done. At the bottom here, again, I've got my toolbar. Notice that's dynamically changed. So it's responsive to my space. I can add a label here. There's that new label. You've got options again for translations there as well. I'm going to drop some info in. Maybe this is room 101. And then maybe room info line 2 is just a binding, and I can pull through that space temp again. So really dynamic from a floor plan perspective. These labels are a lot more extensive now. You have lots of finite control over what that actually looks like. From here, I can start drawing a zone, and I'll just do a quick one here, maybe over this little block down at the bottom. Just dragging some points, clicking, and then hitting OK. That one's pretty faint, so I'm going to click on that and make the width of that box a little bit brighter. And then I'm going to fix it a little bit here, just to the corners. But you can see how building that out is pretty easy. So I get all of that done, and then I come back. And now I can add that as a block. So we'll go to the bottom here. We'll pull through our canvas. You can see the canvas card is ready to go. I select a canvas there. There's our new canvas 1, and it's been fit to the screen. So really cool feature there. Again, we plan on having a few defaults where you can sort of customize and build out what we think a dashboard block would look like or should look like. For the size properties, we'll have some defaults there set for you for that. But ultimately, again, you can build anything here. Really cool. I will go back in here and look at the Sparkline. So, or actually the chart card, sorry. I'll do both, showing you the comparison. So I'll drag that up here. I'm going to choose the same thing here. I'm going to select some histories. We're going to go with a couple of our space temps. So we'll go 1 and 2 there. Those are history records. Those get pulled in. Again, you have customization over what those look like here. I can pull in last hour, maybe last 8 hours if I want to see a little bit more squiggle. I have options for the content value. So I can say that this is our space temp. And you can see that start resizing for us. I can show last value or different time ranges if I want to show that. Over here on the actual chart, I'll do the same thing. I'll pull through that space temp from 1 and 2. Okay. So this one has a little bit more finite control. And that still existed in Reflow 1, but I'll show it off a little bit more in Reflow 2. So I'll call it space temp. I want this to be a little bit bigger, so I'm going to drag it down below and maybe make it double wide so you can see that a little bit better. So while I'm in this preview mode, I sort of get this box that hides what's actually behind here, but I want to show it off because it's really cool. So I'm going to go to browse mode. And you can see the level of detail that we've taken to make sure that everything's still available from Reflow 1, like showing the delta mode or changing the time range from a user's perspective or even dragging to zoom in there. all of that's still available and hidden in this nice little menu so that it's not clouding the space there.
For those unfamiliar, browse mode, what it enables us to do is to act as if you're in the web browser on this page within Reflow. So you can double check your work as you're going through instead of needing to reload or go to a different view. You can do it now completely within the application.
Yeah, great point. Okay, so I think I've hit all of my favorite cards. I'm going to go back here. I've got sort of a site that looks all right. I'm going to switch us back to dark mode there with some keyboard shortcuts. Up at the top, I'll go back to projects. So again, I sort of have this project ready to go. And I can duplicate or go to the details, even export this project. This is also where you would import from a Reflow 1 project or start a new project. So again, you can create a template that lives as a .project, .reflow project that will be your starting point. And then, of course, you can share that amongst your team. So I'm going to go back in here and we're going to publish this really quickly in the top right. I'll hit publish draft. And now that's been pushed. As I go back to projects, you can see that I got that published. And now I can go ahead and duplicate. And that's my copy. And now if I want to experiment, I can do that over here.
Yeah, so while this is a smaller looking feature in terms of the action from the keyboard and mouse, it has an extremely large measure of time savings to it. One thing that we've introduced because we have this publish and draft mechanism is that we allow multiple people to work on the same project at the same time. So maybe I'm working on the main dashboard page doing my work. John can at the same time be working on the buildings pages or equipment pages to then make sure that looks nice. And then when we're ready to publish, we can say, okay, thumbs up, good to go. And that's when it'll go into a production environment. The second part is as we create demo or duplicates, as John said, we'll be able to kind of experiment and play around with different looks and feels and different themes. So we'll talk to themes in a second, but it really gives us the opportunity to provide multiple users, multiple ways of seeing differentiating content in a way that makes sense for them.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned themes. I want you to talk about how we're actually delivering that.
Well, thank you for that.
It's your favorite.
It is my favorite. So this is where we start getting into a bigger value of what we're trying to do as a company. So this is very much not only a technical vision and technical strategy, it's also a business strategy of ours. What we saw in the market and what we got a significant amount of requests for is, hey, Matt, we love Niagara. We love what you're doing today, but I have other pieces of information I want to bring into the system. Maybe that information is something like analytics, whether it's going to be like a SkySpark, a Clockwork, et cetera. Maybe it's something that's not even building automation related, like a ServiceNow. ServiceNow maybe for my operational monitoring, maybe it's for ticketing, work order management, asset management. Really what we're providing with Reflow 2 is what we're calling a connectivity platform. So you'll notice here within the plugins that we have Niagara 4 connectivity, we have Reflow Core Config UI. The takeaway here is that every piece that we're showcasing today, including the application of Reflow itself, is nothing more than a plugin. A plugin might be an API. A plugin may be a webhook. It might be a tie to just some other ancillary third-party application. The point being is that we're willing and able to bring in any data source to then bind it to a block within Reflow 2 to then provide that more enriched experience. When we bring in a plugin, it'll then turn into a data source. So not all plugins will be data sources. I mentioned themes. We'll actually show that in a slide here in a second. The theme we were working in was called the classic Reflow theme. We do have multiple ways of showing data. But whenever we bring in a plugin, it'll then translate into a data source. You see Niagara 4 there. There will eventually be a Niagara 5 plugin there that provides a Niagara 5 data source. But you'll see that Matte Box is a separate data source, and the Weather API is a separate data source. That's how we actually bring the ability to bind much different application data into a single spot. So we're really excited because this opens up the breadth of how we can actually provide and get these different applications and data into our system. And I see our first question, John.
I love it. I love it. So the question is, how do you marry multiple drafts together for publishing a final project? Great question. So as I'm in even this published project, it is existing as a draft until I click that publish button. What that allows is multiple people to be in that same project, and as they publish, mine would update. So we're marrying the two and changing how we're actually synchronizing that data. In Reflow 1, we were saving that to a single JSON file. Now we're adding that to a Reflow project file to be saved together.
And Adam, I would actually answer your question a little differently or re-ask your question. The question could also be, how many projects can I have published at the same time? So maybe we have 3 projects published. There's one for John from an engineering view. I won't have access to it. John will have access to it. Maybe there's one for an energy KPI view where I have access and John doesn't. And maybe the third one is a blend of the two where we both have access. What we're trying to do, and this is where the user enrolls came into play, is give different experiences based on who's logging in to give those different views and ultimately to let people have the information they care about at their fingertips.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Great question. I'm going to tie into what we've been talking about here and show a little bit of our themes. So again, this is a way that we have decided we can bring data to the platform without making it difficult for users who maybe they don't want to deal with the creative side of things. Maybe they don't want to add multiple layers to their hero. They want it to be easy and drag and drop.
Yeah, this is right in my wheelhouse. I'm not a designer, but these guys are.
So we've curated a few. We're going to continue curating these for access and availability inside of our plugin system. This one is focused on a side navigation with some more colorful dashboard cards, rounded corners, and of course, everyone will support dark mode. So again, we plan on making these easy to drag and drop straight from the project. This is map-based, so think Airbnb or Zillow, where you really are focused on where your buildings are and how you're getting to them, and you're starting from there. Buildings that aren't available to a user would be hidden. And again, these are interchangeable with not only users, but projects as well. So if I don't want this view, I'm more of an engineering view, I don't have to have it. I can give this to Matt and he can browse via building.
Yeah, and this is really cool where the projects in an unpublished format really give power to experiment, to innovate, to maybe you bring in a theme and you go, you know what, I like the theme, but I need to bring in an additional plugin for a new data source, or I need to adjust a couple things. That's really the power that we're bringing with Reflow 2.
I like this next one a lot. This one's photography based, more for a campus or someone who has great marketing material. Again, we're thinking kiosk mode here. So that's one of our plugins that we'll be developing next year for that kiosk mode. And this would facilitate that. I think would be perfect. Lastly, we have a portfolio view where you've got a previous and next button at the top, sort of like a one-page report where you don't have to go searching. You sort of log in, get what you need, and get out. You have your mega menu, which will be completely customizable and dynamic up at the top based on what page you're on. On top of these awesome plugins, we have one more that I want to talk about. This is our new graphics library. So again, this is an alpha. It's not into the build that I have specifically, but this is what we're planning to offer for Reflow 2 as an equipment package. So I'll go through what some of these images look like. It's fully robust. It will work with our equipment template systems. We have an amazing designer partnered with us that will be delivering these.
Yeah, we came to the understanding that what we're really good at is the user experience and user interface. What we're not great at, and nor do we want to invest the time, is creating 3D models of very complex pieces of equipment. So we're working with Lewis at BAS GFX. We have a unique partnership specifically for the Reflow standard license as a plugin that we're going to be able to provide the best-in-class three-dimensional models to our customers at a relatively large savings for that specific Reflow instance.
Yeah, it's really cool. All the fans and coils still move. You can see the attention to detail in all of these images, but we took it a step further. We said, hey, these are what we sort of see as like packaged units, right? Not every CEO or CSO will have knowledge of what it actually looks like out in the field. Maybe they need to see something a little bit more modular. So we built a modular library tool, and I'll sort of start this video here. All we're doing is clicking on the screen in a direction. We pick a piece of ductwork, we branch off of that, and Reflow's smart enough to know that I need to turn that elbow into a T, or I need to turn that T upside down, or maybe it needs to be a four-way split, and it's multi-directional there. So this is, again, will be facilitated on the actual canvas that you're able to create. So you can create these for equipment, you can create them for templates, they can be right inside of the page. Anywhere you want to see them, you'll be able to use them.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty powerful statement. So to go back to what we showed with that canvas view, what we really want to give our end customers and our system integrators the option of doing is creating as many layers as you want. So maybe this ductwork is going to be solo and it goes on an equipment page. Maybe you have this creating ductwork that you zoom out on that maybe you put in a reference along with the floor plan. So we understand, hey, on this zone, you're actually going to have this ductwork. We don't really, I don't say we don't care, but we desire for you to be able to say, hey, I want it to look how I want it to look. And because we have an infinite number of layers within the canvas, you can truly make it your own in a unique way. So we're extremely excited about this. This is in a fully functional prototype. We just have not implemented it yet until we get into our beta phase, simply because we want to make sure that the canvas system was up and running and pure, which we're at that point. So we're extremely excited about this. And this is probably, whenever we go to any of the trade shows, one of the biggest aha moments that we have is, really for us, what we're proud of is we try to make building automation modern and polished. Why previously have we been messing with individual pixels like we're creating a website in the 90s? We should be able to do something in modern times akin to creating, train tracks in a video game. Once again, how do I make it quick, easy, seamless, save you time and save you money?
Great question in the chat. Do you just have ductwork or also piping? Piping will be available here as well. And this is not the only library that we'll have available. So we'll have a 3D and a 2D version right inside of the product.
And not only piping, wait, there's more.
There's more. There's always more. So this is a video showing off what it would be like to actually add pieces inside the ductwork. So we're able to determine where the middle of that ductwork is, and no more arrow keys shifting left and right and up and down and trying to get it just right. And then ultimately to have it look different when you get into the web view, we want to make it simple, right? And we're able to tell what these pieces are. So you've got a filter, you have a dirty filter point, you have a chill water valve. There's a chill water valve point because you're building this maybe for a fan coil unit, and we're able to recognize that and tie that to your points template, meaning that you can build it once and use it forever, which is super cool to be able to offer that within our product. So again, feel really strongly about that. That is it for what I've got in my presentation. I'll leave it open for Q&A.
Thanks, guys. Wonderful stuff. Really exciting. And you just, again, got me, especially on this last stuff, whereby as a marketing person, graphics and doing that is just totally awesome. So thanks. A couple questions with respect to, let's say I'm a system integrator and I'm out in the field, and while I may not be creating this, I've already created this. What is the ability with Reflow 2 to look at this from a mobile perspective? I'm on my tablet or my phone. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, great question, Mark. Simple as ever. All you're doing is logging into that same IP address, and because Reflow is already responsive, you're getting those curated views right out of the box. Nothing extra to have to do from the system integrator perspective. It just automatically works and resizes to fit that format. Whether it's a tablet, whether you're turning it sideways and putting it in a panel, or whether you're on a mobile device.
Yeah, Mark, something we're also prototyping within an alpha state in 2026, which is, so it's already up and running today. We just want to make sure it's ready for market, is our mobile application. So instead of going through a browser on the phone, we are creating, and we have ultimately created the base of a mobile application due to a large part cybersecurity, but also it's really a strategic move going forward for us and how we interact with equipment. So what's really cool about a mobile phone is that it has things like biometrics. It can do face recognition. It can do, thumbprint. So it's a more secure login. It gives me the ability to not need to have an open port within my Niagara station, at least from a firewall perspective. It also gives me the ability to take that package of the mobile app and have it scanned by a cybersecurity team at a customer. But where we see it strategically is doing even more. So imagine with a phone that has Bluetooth Low Energy or NFC, I can go to a chiller and commission it. I can see from a proximity perspective the alarmed piece of equipment that I need to work on. This is really those new experiences that we're trying to move on going forward within that mobile app. Once again, more than just simply Reflow 2, it's how do we help in a bigger swath operationally to make sure that everyone's more efficient and everyone's doing a better job.
Excellent. I do see another question that came in on the Q&A. Just to clarify, certain plugins like the BAS GFX plugin will be an additional cost on top of the regular Reflow license?
Dustin, great question. That is a yes with an asterisk. Where that asterisk comes into play is that anyone that has what we call an enterprise license, so that's a single site with more than 2,000 devices, that wants to have unlimited host IDs, think like really big soups, really big environments that we want kind of a single point of management. That's where we will then unlock an all-you-can-eat everything in that single cost. If you're using what we call the standard license, the add-ons and plugins will be a per add-on cost as we develop them. And those pricing, just to be transparent, we don't have that firm yet, but it will possibly be adjusting based on the plugin. Example, if it's a SkySpark plugin versus a ServiceNow plugin versus a simple NiagaraMods created reporting plugin, those might have different costs. But you should, when we actually start pumping these out, be able to work with Lynxspring, give us a ring, multiple ways to help you understand as we create those. But great question. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing to that is sorry, Mark, it'll still be tied to the same licensing structure that exists now. So don't think of it as you're buying it sort of one time and it's going to be this really large cost. It's still going to be per host ID and still managed within the dashboard.
Excellent. A couple other things. Tell us again, we're in alpha now. Just remind us as far as plans for beta, et cetera, again.
Yeah, great and very common question at this point. If any of you have been following the journey of Reflow 2, you have known that we have been talking about beta for a while. Hopefully you can see that we've been doing so on purpose. We're very big on the idea that we have to have a quality product. We're not going to put our partner's business at risk by not having something ready. So first and foremost, apologies for the delay, but we're doing it on purpose to make sure that we have a quality product. We are estimating right now that this month, Mark, we will have a beta up and running. We are working on, I believe, John, one specific piece that we need to iron out, and then we will have our base beta users invited. We are going to go in phases of beta users. So every 2 weeks from when the beta is announced, we'll get more and more beta users to the product, giving us feedback. We'll have an automatic feedback generation form, including feature requests. So when you see this plugin mechanism, you say, hey, Matt, I have a plugin that you haven't mentioned or thought of. This is what I'd like to see. We're giving the avenue to suggest that also. So long-winded answer of hopefully have beta out this month. Going to be going to market with Reflow 2 Q1 of next year. Thank you for being patient. Hopefully what you saw today kind of gives it credence as to why it's been taking so long.
Excellent. And I'm just going to offer to the Lynxspring customers, if you guys are interested in beta, reach out to your regional representative or send us an email at sales@lynxspring.com and we can make the connection and go from there. Another question is, again, once this is fully released, what kind of resources are you planning that customers can go to get additional information, keep up with changes, just get help stuff and things like that? Can you kind of just go into a little bit of the resources that will be available?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Mark. So John specifically has 17 jobs apparently at this company. And one of those is hitting all of that. So John, I'll let you go into it.
Yeah, so a couple of different ways. We will always be available via our normal support channels. That's why we pride ourselves in support and training, of course. For anyone that's already been trained on Reflow 1, we are offering a free bridge training for Reflow 2. So you'll have that readily available. It'll be available for sign up as soon as the full production goes for release. And those will be just normal webinars scheduled either weekly or monthly for anyone to join. From moving forward in 2026, Reflow training will be focused on Reflow 2, so you'll have that available as well. Beyond that, for simple FAQ questions, we've actually built out a microsite, and I think I've got it listed there on our last slide. It's reflowui.com, where we will continue making all of our updates and sort of posting about what's new and what's changed. At the bottom, there are some videos that we'll keep releasing as Reflow 2 continues to be built up. And you'll see lots of those features there. So planning to expand on that, as well as a new knowledge base that we've got coming. So we felt that our documentation was really good. It's great, right? But it's not really a place where you ask specific questions. And we wanted to sort of bridge the gap between those two experiences and have both available in a new format. So also something we're working on as we continue to build up the product.
Excellent. As we're coming up to the hour, I don't see any other questions. So Matt, John, absolutely fantastic presentation. Really exciting stuff. Thank you for going in, participating on today's webinar. For others out who are listening, feel free to reach out to sales@lynxspring.com if we can be of assistance, answer any additional questions. You're interested in becoming a possible beta participant. And until next time, thank you for joining Lynxspring webinar. John, Matt, appreciate it. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.